This computer. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Unscripted Podcast. And well, if you're here, we apologize for the technical delays. Sometimes you have those things. It's great to have technology, but sometimes things don't work out in your favor sometimes. But we're here with episode 37. So if you are a business owner, or maybe you're an aspiring business owner, if you've been thinking about, kind of jumping into this crazy world of entrepreneurship and you want some guidance, well, you're in the right spot. Because what we do on this podcast is we help you learn from our experiences, things that we've helped our own clients with, things that we're going through in our business, because we're just like you, a business owner. And we also share things that we see in the industry and just point, and you can learn from our mistakes, from our lessons, and hopefully not make them yourself. So grab your favorite cup of Joe and let's jump into the show. All right, everybody. So we're here with another episode. We have our famous, beautiful face Dwarn. Dwarn's here, but then you'll also see that we are joined by this week's guest, Dr. Cynthia Coy from Uncaged Solutions. And Dr. Coy is a beautiful and amazing woman who helps others kind of, overcome their overflow that they may feel in their life. So, Dr. Coy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
You
Glad
are
to be
welcome.
here.
Why don't you give us like, a quick 3 4 minute sort of background on who you are and what Uncaged Solution does and your services, and then we can kind of jump into a little bit more of the show.
Sure, absolutely. So, again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I am Dr. Cynthia Coy. My background started in the military, actually. I was doing that I never anticipated a 20-year career, although I ended up having one. But I was leading and about midway through my military career, I started to question what my future was going to look like. Did I want to do 20 years and retire
Right.
from the Air Force, or did I just, you know, um, want to change and do something different to pivot? So, actually, about midway through, I decided to pivot because one of the things I was seeing was the leadership I was experiencing. I had good, I had bad, somewhere in between. And I didn't really see a lot of emphasis on leadership development. In
Okay.
the military, we get a lot of titles and positions, and that's what makes us leadership by position. But as far as like the skills to be a good leader, there were some people who had them, some people who were people-centered, heart-centered, and then there were some people, sorry about that, who were just get the mission done at all costs. Whether that meant it was costing their people, their sanity, and I watched a lot of fellow officers, especially women, struggle with having to make the decision of, okay, I just had a baby, or I still have young kids, and they're trying to be there and take care of them. And then at the same time, the military is, one of the core values of the Air Force is service before self, right? So,
Right.
one of those things is like put the job first. And so, as a result, over time, a lot of the female friends that I had in the military, they made decisions. I think, best for them, which was get out. I have to put my family first, especially if they're in a what we call dual military family, which means both the husband and the wife are military.
Okay.
Um, and so just watching and listening how a lot of women were just overwhelmed because there's a lot of roles. There's the expectations, especially if you're as a leader, that you have it all together, but silently you're breaking down and you're crying. And so midway through my career, I started really looking at how do I help leaders become better, um, not just from a positional standpoint, but from a self-leadership perspective. And so I had switched to the Air National Guard at that time, and then I decided to try my hand at consulting. Although consulting, as I envisioned it, was not how it actually ended up being because it was more government contracting, so not pure consulting in the sense that you could really help a client be better, but through efficiency of processes or things like that. In some instances, yes, but for the most part, we just did whatever we were told to do because we were paid to do that. So I founded Uncaged Solutions back in 2012 while I was still serving, just to kind of get my feet wet. Did it
Right.
alongside a few engagements. But back in 2017, when I actually made a decision um, to leave because my own sanity was in question here. It was very stressful. I was doing something I was not fulfilled in doing, and so I basically became part of my what I like to call my living laboratory, and decided to focus on my own self-leadership. And so Uncaged Solutions has evolved over time. And now, yes, definitely the focus is helping overwhelmed women leaders move to overflow, like really taking the time to understand what is causing the overflow and then taking steps to address it and help you move to a better state of harmony.
Right. And so
No.
how has, the shift from military focus, right? Military leadership. How do you make that transition then to, to like business leadership and leaders, right? Which isn't necessarily because you don't work just with entrepreneurs, you work with like, CEOs, right? The C level as well as business owners.
Right, right. Yeah, the shift is very different because in the military it's very hierarchical. So there it's evolved a bit, but ultimately there's still somebody's telling you what to do. There are policies that are being driven from, the top down. So while sometimes you may have the opportunity to provide some input about impact on, the organization or the people. For the most part, it's out of your control. On the corporate side, I would say
Right.
that the structures are different. Some still are hierarchical, but for the most part, I have found that a lot of them are flatter organizations. And so they really value everybody's opinion. There might be a CEO, but it's really a team effort as far as decision making. Um, so I think that's different, and I think especially if leaders are more people focused, those organizations that are having higher retention of people, it's because
Right.
they are valuing their people's input about decisions that they have to make. Mhm.
Yeah, I think Warren, me and you have had that conversation too about, involving, your staff in, their stakeholders, right? You don't want to just be that
Yeah.
dictator, right? That's creating all the rules and passing them down, right?
Well, at the end of the day, we hire for a skill set, right? We
Mhm.
hire for a skill set which is missing within our business environment or our corporate environment, and we should treat it as such. And each person represents a skill set that we've hired them in for. So if you're not going to listen to them, then what's the point of hiring them in for the skill set? So
Mhm.
we make sure we try and, incorporate their skills as much as possible. There was something, Cynthia, you said there which caught my attention. I totally agree with the whole chain of command thing. When it comes military, it's all very chain of command. A lot of the things you're getting asked to do don't necessarily, it's definitely very different to the corporate world.
Mhm.
It's very much follow the order. And but you mentioned something there which was really interesting to me, which was there's a lack of leadership, guidance, and training offered within the military was something you witnessed. And that's something that most people just wouldn't assume was the case because I had a small stint in the Air Force back in Australia, and my takeaway was one of the most mismanaged organizations that I'd ever been involved in. Um, well, and I'm sure it ran like a military cannot run like a business, and a business can't run like a military. Um, and I think that's the misconception a lot of people tend to have if they haven't seen both sides. Is yes, it runs, but I just found it really interesting that there's a lack of training offered to those people getting promoted into those roles. You would assume that that would be something that would be very important to help them be successful. So, I mean, what's your feelings around why that there's not more emphasis on that?
Well, I have been retired for a minute, so I'm going to hope and pray that things have shifted
Of
for
course.
but I would say, during my time, again, it was a lot of technical expertise. You went to what we call technical school or tech school. Um, and then it was just the ability to perform well. Your evaluations every year were like, okay, if you met or exceeded the expectations and you had a good record, you're, passing your PT test, your physical fitness test and things like that, then it was like, okay, at a certain time, if all of the gods agree, for lack of a better term, then you were selected for promotion and then you got promoted.
Yeah.
Unless you had a mentor, like somebody, a leader who maybe was in your chain, but most likely maybe not, who just took an interest in you, and they were the ones who really guided you in developing those leadership skills. I think that it just wasn't have it's more about mission, I think. I think about my very first assignment in the military. I had my first commander I thought was great. My second commander, he and I clashed a lot because he was very, very mission focused. And I remember one time we had this conversation where he asked me, what's more important, the mission or the people? And I told him the people. And he said, wrong. He said, it's the mission. And I said, but if you don't take care of people, they can't do the mission. So, like, that's my opinion. But
Yeah.
I think it's a prevailing opinion because even in the corporate side, people don't leave organizations just because they're like, people leave people, right?
Right.
If they're not valued, if they're not treated well, if they're not heard, then that's what's going to burn them out and that's what's going to overwhelm them. And then eventually they have to make a decision. Maybe they don't want to, maybe they enjoy what they did, but ultimately they're not valued. And so they will leave. And I think there's just not that soft skill. I mean, we are, in some assignments I've had throughout my career, it is such a fast-paced, um, you know, world where it's like we're just getting things done, and very little time sometimes, unless you make it a priority, which I did, to actually get to know your people and find out, intrinsically what motivates them, um, and what they value, and making sure that becomes something that you are honoring and respecting, right? So not
Well,
working
I think
somebody,
I think
yeah.
too, like how that kind of overlaps with business in general is that a lot of businesses don't put that emphasis on even training, right, leaders and managers as they promote them. And I've seen that right in my kind of trajectory when I was in the corporate world is many businesses don't have that set training program available for first time managers or first time leaders. I've heard it, just talking to other people, right? If you go out and talk to anybody who lives or works in an environment where they have a manager, and there's going to be all these bad stories about leadership and the lack of leadership skills that their managers have, and a lot of times it's just the worker bee got promoted because they needed somebody,
Mhm.
and they didn't show any, kind of leadership skills, and then they're just thrown in this position and now it becomes a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it's like when you
Cynthia,
first get a job, you teach someone the skills to do the job that you hire them for. It's yet people just in business, it tends to be an assumption that when you get put into a leadership role, because you're good at your job that you were doing, which you may have loved, that you're just going to be great at leadership as well, which is not always the case.
mm,
So I think a lot of business leaders forget to train that next level. If you're going to step them up, you need to upskill to that next level for leadership as well, because it's not a magical skill you suddenly wake up and have.
Absolutely
Right.
not.
There's a lot more that goes into it, which, I'm
It
sure
can
you
be
teach
developed. Like
business.
leadership can definitely be developed. But it's not like everybody's born. Like one person's born to be a leader, somebody's not. Like you can, if that's like your aspiration, you can learn the skills to be a good leader. I don't think you're
Yeah.
born a great leader. I think you learn it and you practice it and you continue to kind of go down that path. But so Cynthia, I know a couple things that you do. So one, you just had a great event yesterday, right? It called Live to Lead. So
Yeah.
tell a little bit about like, what the event is and how you feel that that's been able to make an impact on your clients and kind of the outcomes that you've seen from people that have come to that type of event.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Live to Lead, I get the opportunity to bring this to my community because number one, I'm a proud certified Maxwell Leadership team member. Maxwell Leadership was started um, about I think 2011. This is John Maxwell's organization, and so for those who probably never heard of him, he's literally the world's number one leadership expert, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and so there was a vision back then to basically create the legs to John's legacy. So John is right now about 78 years old, young, I should say, because he's traveled like I do. And so anyway, back in 2014, Live to Lead was created. And what that does is there are now nearly 60,000 certified coaches and trainers and speakers in the team, but for those of us who choose to invest, we get to get a license to bring Live to Lead to our communities. When we are recording it in Orlando, and it used to be in Georgia, but like this past August, we recorded in Orlando. We had speakers. Um, this year it was, of course, John's always there, and then it was Tiffany Bova. It was Anthony Trucks and it was Jesse Cole, um, who's the creator of Savannah Bananas, right? So
Right.
He's
we,
a cool guy.
yeah, really like I've fallen in love with him, right? So um,
Everybody
that
does, it seems.
But the yellow
yeah,
tuxedo, I mean,
yeah,
how many
he
does
stands
he own,
out,
right?
right? Stands
Yeah.
out.
I,
But
I
all of
wonder how
them
many
are
he actually
amazing.
does own. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all of them are amazing. And so I heard them. I immediately think about my community, like who needs to hear this, who needs to be here. And then I
Mhm.
curate a day. So not only do I bring the virtual speakers um, to the events, but I also think about the local leaders in my area that maybe other people want to listen to and who have some good leadership advice for them as well. And so then I basically curate a day. And so we, like yesterday, we had a local restaurant curated the meals for the day, breakfast and lunch. There was some networking that went on before, during, and after. But during the event, one of the powerful things that happens, and by the way, every Live to Lead host curates it differently, right? Because we have
Right.
people who are doing this over in Africa, Australia, the Maldives, I mean, throughout Europe, South America, I mean, it's everywhere around the world. And so you have to know your community, yeah, I guess like the needs of your community and what would resonate. Um, and I think because for me, because I am a coach in nature, right? Like a mindset coach, reflection is a big part of the activities that I do throughout the day. And as we closed it out yesterday afternoon, because it was all day, like 8 to 4, just the takeaways were amazing. My particular theme that I came up with for this season, was leading from leading with the perspective advantage. And the question I asked at the end was, what perspective did you have walking into this room? And what perspective are you now having leaving? And it was just an overall resounding shift that happened for them and how they look at how they're taking care of themselves.
Right.
How are they taking care of themselves as leaders, and what things are going to change. Lots and lots of nuggets and wisdom dropped virtually and from the local leaders that we had. So it
What would you
was,
say is what would you
yeah.
say was the biggest takeaway? Like what was the biggest that you heard like that people said was kind of like the biggest takeaway that they got from the event yesterday?
So many, right? Because of some speakers, but
Yeah.
there was one that resounded communicating better
Okay.
with their team or their family. There was another one where this gentleman, he manages a lot of people, and he admitted that, he is very focused on getting something done and then, move on to the next. And he said, he learned he needs to stop and celebrate the wins, celebrate his people more, right? So
Yep.
there was a lot of, people, I would say, from the personal side, just um, learning how to, one of Jesse Cole's lessons that he was teaching was to eliminate friction, um, and to create, enthusiastic fans. He has a book called Fans First.
Yeah.
And how do you experiment with things? That was another thing that came up. People are like, I'm going to try new things now, right? So it was all over. I can't say there was like one single one, but I would say the overall sense was that people were leaving better, and excited, inspired was the word that was used a lot too, just to lead better in their
Right.
home as well as the workplace.
That's
No, I love that.
really amazing revelations right there. Like they're having curious, like what happens next? Like they've had the event for the day.
Yeah.
What happens next? How do you help them take that next step to, you know, get to those realizations that they've had? Is that part of the process that for the day, or is that because I'd just be so curious to see how many of them are going to be successful in all this new information they gathered and the mindset shifts that they're going to have experienced.
Yeah. So I would love to say that every single person who comes to an event like that would become a client, and or they'll keep embarking and investing in their growth journey, and maybe they will in some way, but definitely with follow-up. I got the feedback, which is great, which I can use for follow-up. But I think the thing is, those people who want to continue investing, I definitely offer the opportunity for them to become a coaching client. um, I have an upcoming retreat um, next year, so that they can get an invitation for that as well. But I think people who are really serious about their growth journey, they seek out opportunities to grow. Um, and I think overall, when you look at a lot of leaders, they they're not consistent. Let's just be real. They're not consistent in growing. It's like
Right.
it's like we went, it was great, we feel good. But then what are you doing
Yeah.
tomorrow? And I think that's the beauty of, when you decide to invest, I'm getting tongue-tied, right? When you decide to invest in a coach, that coach is helping you stay on track and stay accountable with, you know, getting things done, not from a task perspective necessarily, but like really, really tackling some of your
Right.
issues or challenges that you're having as a leader, as a person, in your self-leadership journey. And so,
Well, I
that's
think that's a big thing, right? Is that these events they happen, and when you're
Mhm.
there, right, you're engulfed in the
Right.
event, and so you feel it, and then the next day you go back to everyday life, and the
Yeah.
question is, right, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here,
Back to the
and I
grind.
guess, and Obviously, Cynthia, you and I work closely together. You're a client, but my challenge to you then is to over right the next like 2, 4, 6 weeks, continue to check in with those that attended to make sure that they're continuing to kind of implement everything that they learn. Like the biggest takeaways and all of that, and
Yeah.
and developing that kind of follow-up sequence. And I think we've talked about in prior conversations, like what's your follow-up? And I think that's the biggest opportunity that you have with those individuals is that it's fresh in their mind. So
Mhm.
like even a personalized follow-up, personalized email today or a phone call to them is going to be that next thing. Like, hey, what's your challenge? So a lot of the things that I did when I did in-person trainings was I gave them like a 7-day challenge, at the
Mhm.
end of it. Like, here's what you need to accomplish in the next 7 days to keep that momentum going, and then following up with people, has led to great results and even, a client or two for me. And so I would challenge you to do that now as you now have like, 10, 20 warm leads that are ready, right? They've told you at the end of it that they have some sort of change or improvement that they want to make. And now it's like, okay, like how, how are you going to do that, right? What's your next
Yeah.
step?
The
And then
follow
showing that
through.
kind
Yeah.
of,
Mm.
exactly.
And like for me, I'm listening to that, Dave, and I love that. But we know that when we're going to get a call, it's going to get tough.
Mhm.
For me, I think in the modern day, we're all super busy and everyone's back to the grind. A great way to do it is come at it from an angle where you shoot a couple of videos. Now, Cynthia, I've seen a few of your videos on YouTube. You're great in front of the camera. You're not shy to be in front of the camera and have a conversation, which is great.
It's a growth
So just,
process, a growth process.
I know,
She's
right? We've all
evolved over
been
time.
there.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Just shoot a little personal video for each one and just set them a little challenge. And like, hey, so I saw in your response that you sent through that you're looking at doing this. Um, I challenge you to check in with me in a few weeks and let me know what the progress of that is. Just drop me an email. You don't have to send me a video, but if you want to, here's my calendar, make a booking, and I'd love to hear what sort of progress you've made. And that little personal video that you do, and each one of those is a couple of minutes. An hour later, you've got all your videos created. You're super exhausted. Your mind's everywhere because you've been thinking about all of this. But you can then send all those out to the individuals, and that might get some nice reactions because it's very personal. The other thing I was just thinking, like at the events, one thing you might want to try is encourage them to find a buddy and
Mhm.
have a buddy at the events and talk about how that buddy could help them remain accountable for what goals they're setting for themselves on the day.
Yeah.
And, have that sort of scenario where they can call each other and help each other out and encourage them like what that could look like. Just one call a week where they spend 15 minutes talking about what they've done for the week and how they've, you know, towards reaching their goals. Because at the end of the day, one thing I was listening here and I was thinking, every one of these people who went, they're setting their own goals. So you
Yeah.
as a coach, when you start working with them, you're not helping them reach goals that you want them to reach. You're helping them reach the goals they've set themselves. So you're
Exactly.
helping them reach the goals they're trying to achieve for themselves, which is really, really hard to do without a little bit of accountability. So coaches like yourself help make that real. Because we tend to feel like we give ourselves a little pat on the shoulder. We did well, move on,
It's not
without really
okay.
thinking about the consequences, right?
Right,
Of what
right.
that really
Right.
means.
But it's funny that you said that, Juan, because actually during the event, or it was the virtual event talk by Jesse Cole. Of course, I had seen it before, but one thing that I think that was really powerful in the room that yesterday was he took out his camera live at the event in August. And he made a video for one of his team members of Savannah
Yeah.
Bananas. And everybody in the crowd was there, and so, everybody was screaming and saying hi or whatever. But he just, loved on him as a leader and just said, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you and um, some other things, but it was very
Right.
short, just very powerful. And I think that was a good, even the idea you mentioned, it's a great idea because not saying texts are not nice, right? Or emails are not, great, but there's nothing like a personal, video
Right.
call as a message.
Mhm.
So that's definitely something, yeah, to
And I think
implement.
some people too, like if they don't want to do like the video and send like a video message, like you could just send an audio. Like
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
there's just that. extra level of personalization
Effort, yeah.
than just sending a text or an email or something like that. So, but
The
Cynthia, I don't
affliction in
want to
the
throw.
tone as well. I mean, you can really
Right,
portray
Hmm.
that very clearly. And like one of the scenarios that we see is we get a nice video. What's the first thing you do? You turn to the closest person that you like and you say, watch this.
right,
And
That's
they're like,
true. That's
who's
true.
that? You should work with that person. They're
Yeah.
nice. You need
right,
that. Oh, you reckon? Yeah.
Oh,
So, I mean, I think there's huge trade-offs there. And I remember, it would have been like probably 8 years ago, there was a software vendor back in the day that one of my clients, he actually reached out and bought some software from them. It
mhm.
wasn't a lot, but he got really excited about it because he's like, I just got sent a video from this guy. He's like walking down to the beach with his dogs, and he just, hey, Alan, just wanted to say thank you so much for the purchase. Like, you have no idea what this means to me. This is great. Just somebody else in our ecosystem who's, appreciates what we're doing. We love
right.
that. Hey, if you ever want to just chat and tell me about your experience with the software, reach out. I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm just here walking my dogs at the moment. Yeah, so I've got a few minutes. I thought I'd just give you this, send this little video to you.
But that
And
means a lot because it's like when you become top of mind for somebody who you know is busy or has other things to do, it just makes that person feel that much more valued and special. Um,
yeah,
I'm led, from time to time myself, even just in my personal relationships and business, from time to time, because um, I'll get there. But in the personal side, sometimes you're just thinking about them and you just want to just say, hi, I was thinking about you. Hope you're having a great day. On the business
Right.
side, I am very focused on not letting my business relationships become so transactional.
yeah,
Like,
Right.
meaning like I'm just only calling you because I want something from you or you know what I mean? Because that's what we do, right? In business, like, yeah, I got an event coming up, right? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like when's the last time I just checked on one of my business contacts to just say, hey, how have you been? Like not what's going on in your world that I can buy from you or you can sell me or vice versa, but I think those genuine business relationships happen when it becomes more than just business that you're
Right.
talking about, right?
and it's really powerful. Like just last week, one of my clients shared that he was having potential separation with his wife,
Mm,
and it was pretty tough on him. And as you can imagine, and he just had to delay a few things from the work front. And just me sending through a message a few days later saying, "Hey, how you doing, mate? Just a welfare check. What's going on? How's things happening? You doing okay? If you need a call, jump. Just let me know. We'll jump on a call."
yeah,
And I just get a response going, "Really appreciate that. Thanks. I'm good for now,
Right.
but I'll reach out if I need
yeah.
something."
And that's
And
something they'll always remember. Yeah.
yeah, because we all
Exactly.
go through hard times, right? And we remember who was there, not necessarily to help us, but just to listen during those hard times.
Mhm.
And even in the good times, just to celebrate and remind them, hey, I saw you posted this on LinkedIn. Well done. Great work. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, that's all I got to say. I just wanted to say great work. And it's funny because you mentioned Jesse Cole. I watched a bunch of his videos, and one of his videos, he literally just calls his players. He stops this interview and goes, "Hey, look, I've just got to make a quick call." Calls
Mhm.
me, "Hey, I just want to say good night. Hope you had a great day. Ready for the big game tomorrow. I'm sure you're going to be great." And he
Mm,
did that to two or three different players, and they're all like super pumped and excited to have that conversation with him. So, from a great leadership point of view, yeah, to have him at your events, I think that's incredible. That's a high caliber, very underrated leader right there.
mhm.
So that's incredible.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah.
So, Cynthia, obviously, with all of that in mind, right? You mentioned we all have busy lives. And so, like the overflow. And the one thing I wanted to wrap up with is you're coming out with a book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's exciting, And and the focus of that is, right, the overflow. So
Mhm.
give us some insights on the new book. Maybe not don't give all the way, all the hidden gems, but just high level kind of what brought you to writing the book and who's kind of the ideal target, and what do you feel like they're going to get out of it?
Yeah. First, let me start off by saying that um, the idea of even writing a book came about maybe a decade ago.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
you see it, you see other people do it, and I thought about it myself, and over time, I was like, who would read something I write, right? Like
That that imposter
it's not
syndrome,
Atomic
right?
Habits by James Clear or something, right?
Yeah.
But it's, at the end of the day, part of my journey of self leadership and what I teach others to do is it matters. Your words matter and your story matters. Your story is unlike anybody else's story. The words
Hmm.
that you have to say are unlike anybody else's words. And so I took that plunge earlier this year and I just started writing. And it was very therapeutic for me, actually, just to get it all out there. But I think it was also very and it was like a transformative experience, even for myself to do that. Learning a lot with the process, right? Going through writing and editing and soon to be fully published. But the book is called Overflow, The New Way to Lead, Live, and Last. Um, because I talked about overwhelm, and that's usually the starting point, right? People are
Hmm.
overwhelmed with trying to be all things to all people all the time. And in that process, the book talks about how we become fragmented, right? We are no longer whole because we are just think of yourself just split apart. Um,
I feel
and
that
so,
way sometimes.
yeah. And to be able to work through, and there's reflection prompts at the end of each chapter, but to really think about how to make myself whole again and how to lead myself better so I can live better and ultimately create a legacy that the people around me, the people I'm leaving behind and for generations to come, is something they can model to be an overflow. John Maxwell always talks about how you cannot basically pour from an empty cup. So you have
Right.
to always be filling yourself up. And I know we give, give our last dime, give the shirt on the back, whatever. But, there's also some wisdom that you have to have some boundaries you have to create. And that's all in the book. I'm not going to give too much more, but yeah, it's just
Yeah.
really just a different mindset. It's like, how do I stop this overwhelm? It's not saying that overwhelm will never come up again, but you
Mm.
will have a better mental space and mindset to manage that and then learn tools and strategies to mitigate it from rising up so often. So
So,
it's about response, how you respond to it every time too.
and who would you say is like the target audience for the book?
Yeah. So it's definitely targeted toward my busy C-suite female leaders, right?
Okay.
But I would tell you anybody could read this book.
Business owner, right? Yeah, even business owners, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I get
So,
something from it. Like as I listen to explain that,
Uh-huh.
I am thinking I need to get at least three copies for three different people that I love, and I want to get this for because I could see them getting so much value from a book like that.
hmm.
So I
And
definitely want
well,
to.
so with that in mind, when's the release date, Dr. Coy?
No exact date just yet, but it will be in March of 2026.
Okay, perfect.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it.
Make sure you reach out to me, Cynthia, and let me know because like I said, I got three, maybe more before that. By
Yeah.
that time, where I'll be getting them a copy as a gift because I
Awesome.
think that would be really, that'd be really powerful for them.
For sure.
So, you self-publishing this, or are you using a Amazon, or how are you using? What tool are you using to get this out?
So I'm self-publishing, but I'm using a publishing company that helps people self-publish. So I'm not doing
Okay,
it completely on my own. I
Gotcha.
do have some colleagues who've done the completely do it themselves, but this is just my particular, for me, is one, um, the the time and energy for me. is like not. Not
I get
so
it.
Yeah.
I definitely learned how to, let people who shine in those areas do what they need to do versus me trying to learn everything. I like learning the new things, but
There's
um,
a limit.
yeah, there's
Well,
a
I think
limit.
that's one of the things, right? That I think that's one of the things that is admirable about you, right? Is you kind of embellish that, focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses,
Mhm.
and allow other people to help you on the weakness side, so that you don't have to, like you just said, you don't have to figure it out, right? You let them run it and then you just do what you're strong with, right? The mindset, the overwhelm, right? The leadership coaching piece. So it's good.
I got a
So,
question for
uh,
you, Cynthia.
Sure.
What would be your biggest advice to anyone thinking about writing a book? What would be your biggest advice for them?
Get over the fear and just do it. Just start writing.
yeah,
Um, I think that the biggest thing is all the stories we have read from other people, there's somebody out there who needs to read your story too. And when you are too afraid to put pen to paper or fingers to keys, it's you're basically taking that away from somebody who really needs to hear your message. And so let go of that fear and just jump right into it. It's the
I love
love
mindset.
that.
that.
You got to just change that mindset right there. Yeah.
Well, I think too,
Absolutely. I
like
love
even
that.
if
I think
even
that's
if
cool.
you possibly start with the mentality that it may never go out, but just getting it down, right?
Hmm.
Just getting it out on paper. And then you can kind of take that next step of then turning it into like a polished like book story type thing, I think is a good way to start as well.
I'll say the last thing, but I mentioned earlier like the writing journey was very transformative for me. And that's something I think that people don't realize or they don't think about when they're going to embark on writing a book. It's just as much for you as it is for them. And so
Mm,
you have to remember that, like just getting it
Right.
all out there. Yeah, it's for you
For
too.
sure. Love it.
yeah. It's actually quite interesting you say that. One of my good friends that I caught up for breakfast this morning with, actually, he's a Canadian here in the Philippines where I am. He was at one of the events that you offer as well, but in Canada, he was a speaker at one a few months
Mm,
ago. And he was sharing with me in a previous, about a year ago, he'd written a book, and it was a book around his weight loss journey, and he's just never released it. He
wow.
and he's holding back on the release, and yeah, I'm going. I think it comes down to fear is probably one reason, but I think also, like, he's explained his story to me and I loved it, and I thought people just want to know this. They want to read this because so many people can relate to our stories when we don't even know. It's the old
Mm,
adage where you're explaining your stories around a campfire and people are relating and enjoying and then retell those stories. And everybody enjoys it. And you're right. It's not just these big names that have got great stories. People have just got to take one thing away from your book that's a positive for them, and they're going to appreciate it.
Right.
So,
and I would say this too, and this I apply whenever I'm doing an event or anything. And I learned this from John Maxwell too. You do for one as you would for many, right? You don't think about it. I think a lot of times our fears are based on a quantity, right? Like, well, what if X number of people don't show up? So what? The
mm,
impact that you have on a single person ripples
Mhm.
because if it impacts them that much, they're going to tell somebody, they're going to share it with somebody, right? And then that person is being influenced and impacted by that. And next thing you know, that one person who was impacted at that event or in a conversation even, um, it spreads. And so never underestimate the quality that you provide um, because the quantity may or may not be there. Because you can have a room full of people or a community full of people who are not impacted at all. They're just there. But
mm,
it's really, and that's always my focus is the impact. I love intimate groups a lot because those people are really there for that transformation or whatever. So I
Right.
think that's the thing too when you're thinking about the book, your friends, getting over that fear of, I don't know if it is about, well, if nobody's going to read my book. He has to read his book, right? He wrote it, he read his book.
Good call.
And to your point, he's shared his journey with you. That resonated. And so there's other people who need to hear that book or that story, but he's holding it and he has to be able to let it go. And so
Yeah.
again, that's just a mindset that we have to get through and get over, change, shift, because we can you can be holding the key to the greatest thing that other people need, but you don't realize it because you don't realize the value it has yourself. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Dave and I talk about that a lot, actually, that when we get into meetings and we talk to business owners, we tend to find ourselves just making assumptions that we know something, so everyone else knows it. And it is the furthest thing from the truth. There is so many simple things that we get on calls that people just don't understand or know because they've never had to know it. We
yeah.
know it because it's every day for us. But that's like expecting a mechanic to know what a doctor knows and a doctor to know what a mechanic knows. It's just
Right.
not the way the world works. And we couldn't have all that information in our heads and function as well as we do. So I love that. Share your knowledge with people, get over the fear, and what you've got to say is likely a lot more important and more valuable than you could possibly imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Cynthia, thank you for sharing that. We always like to end the show with maybe one or two takeaways that you would hope that somebody learned and can, begin to implement into their business, into their life. So for you, Cynthia, we'll start with you. What's one or two things that you just hope somebody takes away from this conversation, and begins to implement into their life?
Yeah. I would say invest in your own self-leadership. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Before you can lead well, you have to lead others well, you have to be able to lead yourself well. And that itself is a daily journey. And so I hope people take a moment to kind of sit back and say, okay, how well do I lead myself? That's number
Right,
one. Number two, in the midst of you trying to lead yourself, well, you are most likely in a situation where you are leading other people. So sit back and ask yourself, how do I lead better? What am I holding on to that I need to let go to help develop other people better? There is so much um, power and value in developing other leaders around you, to let them make mistakes, to let them grow from what they're learning and failing at. Failure is one of the most powerful teaching lessons I believe you can ever do. So fail often.
right,
Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is, focus on your personal journey and then also make sure that you are um, focusing on others that you are entrusted to lead. I mean, I think that's the other just a mindset. You are not the boss or the leader just by position. This is a something you have been given a gift to lead other people. And what you do with that gift matters.
right.
So how will you use your gift? Yeah.
Love it. Dwarren, how about
I
you?
like that.
What's the
For
takeaway you hope
me,
somebody?
my takeaway is if you are going to go to an event like the one that Cynthia was sharing with us earlier, don't be so smitten with the event and then forget everything at the end of the event.
Mhm.
You've taken the first step towards going to the event to get that fire started. Make sure you take that next step. Make sure you're prepared to take that next step.
Right,
Um, because yes, you're still going in the right direction, but you need to keep pushing forward. Like you were just saying there, Cynthia, it's one of those things where you need to work on yourself And one of the best ways to work on yourself is while the fire is, just roaring after those events, is just take advantage and just keep pushing forward and getting going and building up that goal set and then going out and achieving it. And it's not going to be easy to do by yourself. So find yourself a partner in your business, a coach, a consultant, a friend who's, in business and doing really well and have them as a mentor. Whatever it works out to be for you, but
Mhm.
find somebody that's going to help you hit those goals and reach them. Um, because otherwise you're just throwing away great opportunities. And
Mm,
Right.
definitely go and buy Cynthia's book because it sounds like it's going to be amazing.
thank you.
Exactly. I would say, for me, the biggest takeaway, I think, we talked about it a little bit, Cynthia, and your challenge, I would say, for the next 4 to 6 weeks is going to be, the importance of follow up. So if you yourself in your business are doing some sort of these similar events, where you have these warm leads right at your fingertips, and you're not doing any follow up, and you're not doing any sort of, targeted outreach to continue and to ensure that they are implementing the pieces of information that you're giving them in these events, you are missing out a lot. And the one thing I would say, love them or hate them, you have like the Tony Robbins and all these different sort of, even free events that they do. But if you ever signed up for one, even if you didn't attend it, you still get all the emails and the text messages that are
Mhm.
after the fact that are maybe not necessarily what you could do as a small business owner towards, as you said, Cynthia, a small targeted, right, group. They're more mass, right? Also, a lot of the stuff is more high level, but you as a business owner can just do even more targeted, personalized messaging that can further, influence, right, the success of the people that attended your events. And so that's my biggest takeaway. I think that from our conversation, as well as everything I agree with that you guys pointed out, but and how important leadership is, not only just as a business owner, but even if you're a C-suite or even, and your first time being a manager, how important it is to
Mm.
learn how to lead rather than just be the worker bee. And so that's important as well. So with that, if you've watched it this far, one, thank you for watching the replay because the technical difficulties we had this morning. But Cynthia, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here and sharing your message. I think it will be a benefit to have you back in the future too, especially around the book launch
That's
to
him.
talk a little bit more about, in depth about the aspects of the book. I think it would be important. And thanks for being here. We love you all. If you can help, share this video with your network. As Cynthia said, right? You don't know who needs to hear something that we mentioned today that's a business owner or a leader that can take something from this, implement in their lives, and have that ripple effect. I agree with that too. It's funny you said that, Cynthia, because I say that, when I'm talking to people about their finances in their business, is that, when you, a business owner, can improve your finances, it's not just you that it has a ripple effect on. It's your employees, it's your family, and it's the community around you because you're making a bigger impact in the people around you. So I love that kind of analogy. So we love you. Thank you for being here and for watching this far. And again, do all that fun algorithm stuff, like, subscribe, do all that stuff for us. And until then, we'll see you in the next one. And Cynthia, Warren, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Cynthia.
All right,
Thank
everybody. We'll see you later. Bye bye.